In southern Iraq, fixing essential services.
Under Saddam Hussein, basic services often just collapsed through neglect, and fixing water pipelines now is an essential way of winning the peace. The military don't quite make it up as they go along, but they do try to make it happen.
I think the failure was not that we didn't do the planning. We did the planning, but we just planned for completely the wrong things. We just planned for completely the wrong thing. And where it went wrong was the Americans didn't have enough troops when they went in. So they were able to do a very light touch invasion. The trouble with a light touch invasion is you don't then have the troops to maintain law and order.
What the battles didn't destroy, the people are demolishing. Looters were raiding a truck of food and water. The British troops here struggled to keep the peace.
It was about our inability to provide safety, security in Iraq after we went in, and our failure to help build institutions.
Britain says it's here to give Iraq a future, but the building blocks for that today in Basra are coming down.
The chaos and the suffering that
no one can possibly dispute there were serious mistakes made in the aftermath. All I say to people is it was going to be difficult whatever you did.
We'd gone to Iraq in what was our first visit after the war, and we were...
Well, it's really good of you to have me here today. And when people look back on this time and look back on this conflict, I honestly believe they will see this as one of the defining moments of our century. And you did it. And thank you.
Prime Minister, thank you very much.
It must have been about 6:30 UK time.
Yeah.
I got a phone call from London from the duty press officer. And if you get a phone call at 6:30 in the morning, it generally isn't good news.
The government's facing more questions this morning over its claims about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Our defence correspondent is Andrew Gilligan. This in particular, Andy, is Tony Blair saying they'd be ready to go within 45 minutes.
That's right, that was the central claim in his dossier which he published in September, the main case, if you like, against Iraq. And what we've been told by one of the senior officials in charge of drawing up that dossier was that the government probably knew that that 45-minute figure was wrong even before it decided to put it in. And Downing Street, our source says, ordered, a week before publication, ordered it to be sexed up, to be made more exciting.
That is about as bad and as toxic as you can get. He basically just said that we, the government, Tony Blair, doctored, quote, sexed up, I think we all know what he meant, to put things in there that weren't true, against the wishes of the intelligence agencies. I mean, it was a lie on every level.
You have to be able to prove to people that you acted in good faith, because if you didn't act in good faith, obviously that would be monstrous.
Oh, he's here, thanks.
He's here.
John,
get the chair in.
Well, now we are joined by Alistair Campbell, a rare moment. Thank you for coming in. This row between you and the BBC...
This isn't a row between me and the BBC. This is an attempt by the government to get the BBC to admit that a fundamental attack upon the integrity of the government, the Prime Minister, the intelligence agencies, let alone people, the evil spin doctors in the dark who do their dirty works in the minds of a lot of journalists, let them just accept for once they have got it wrong.
It is obvious from what the Today programme has said, if that source is to be believed, that of course there was somebody from within the intelligence community that spoke to the media.
I was told.
Dr. Kelly, who's 50, he'd been under intense media scrutiny since he gave evidence to the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee earlier this week.
you cannot allow people to think that you deliberately misled them, which of course we hadn't.
As the snow falls on Westminster tonight, Mr. Blair can take comfort from the fact he's safe in his job. But he now has another longer fight ahead of him to restore the electorate's trust in him.
Clearly the public believed that they had not been told the full truth.
Well, indeed, the search for Iraq's weapons has found none so far, but now that search is set to intensify.
We were completely convinced that he had weapons of mass destruction.
Realising.
It chilled the bones. It was the moment I dreaded.
The sad fact is the intelligence which was relied on turned out to be not reliable.
I mean, that had been put forward as the basis for military action. So it was obviously, given that the decision was already controversial, it was going to be subject to enormous criticism, and some people would be saying, well, you always knew it was wrong. You know, the good faith point is really, really important, because, you know, otherwise, of course, the destructive impact on politics, never mind the decision itself, would be huge.
The evidence about Saddam having actual biological and chemical weapons, as opposed to the capability to develop them, has turned out to be wrong. I acknowledge that, I accept it. But I can't sincerely, at least, apologise for removing Saddam.
But he didn't get very much further before the first interruption, a lone protester shouting that Mr. Blair had blood on his hands.
No, that's fine, sir, you can make your protest. Just thank goodness we live in a democracy and you can.
You have to know that Tony is a very, 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 very good presenter.
Straight to the point. The thing I reproach myself for, more than anyone else reproaches me, and the mistake that we made was very, very clear. And it wasn't a mistake of deceit, and it wasn't a mistake even particularly of organization. It was a failure to understand that the Middle East is gripped by deep forces, particularly of religious-based extremism. Once you remove the dictator, those forces erupt and make it extremely difficult to govern the aftermath. I mean, there's no point in look, I'm just not of the school of politics that thinks it's a great thing just to keep displaying your emotions to people. It's not the relevant point. You know, in the end, my emotions are not the important thing. What I feel is not the important thing. These questions of legacy and how people view my government or view the decision on Iraq, it's not something, I don't spend my time worrying about that. I do spend my time worrying about where the Middle East goes and the place of Iraq within it. Yes, I do, because I feel responsibility for it. But the questions of legacy is not going to be determined by me. It's going to be determined by history. Right, good afternoon. In light of the length of the report, the statement that I make will be fairly long. But after the statement is ended, then I'm happy to stay and take questions for as long as you want to ask them. 20 countries led by the United States of America. It was the hardest, most momentous, most agonizing decision I took in my 10 years as British Prime Minister. No, I think about the decision and its consequences virtually every day. You can never take a decision this large and of such extraordinary magnitude and impact on the world and it not live with you rightly for as long as you live. It should do.
Here at Westminster, the families and the world's media have been digesting the findings of the report.
This report really is a devastating denunciation of pretty much every aspect of the war.
You know, the responsibility I feel is complete and it's real. And the only thing I ever ask of people is at least to listen to what I'm saying in explaining the decision and in the fact there is another point of view about its consequences.